Hi, everyone. I'm Martin Tuttle, and I'm going to take you through my understanding of the Children's Internet Protection Act and how it can contribute to internet safety in schools. So very quickly, we'll look at that act and its goals and the requirements that schools need to adhere to and the results. And then I will tell you a little bit about how that can contribute to my Korean context, or how it relates to my Korean context. So the Children's Internet Protection Act, as I understand it, is sort of a combination of three acts. The first is the initial CIPA Act in 2000, which sought to control any exposure to obscene, sexual, or harmful content on the internet to minors. And the second one, they expanded on that idea and included a level of education, a required education, so that students learn how to behave appropriately online. And that was, to seek to combat cyberbullying. And then initially in 1998, there was the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which sought to assist or protect students or children in having any privacy violations. At that time, as children became more active online, and they start using more and more devices and applications, and some of these companies are asking for their name and their email and occasionally their home address. And their parents might not know about that, then that became an issue. And so the FCC sought to try to control that and hold companies accountable. So in that act, any of that information, privacy agreements need to be made aware of to the parents or guardians, and then any changes in that need also to be communicated. And parents need to have some sort of agreement that companies can point to. So all of that, all of these ideas are relevant to the Children's Internet Protection Act. So schools have 4 requirements that they need to adhere to. And the first is that there must be a filter on any computer with internet access on the school network. And that filter must block any child pornography or obscene images and any harmful or violent depictions to minors. The second important requirement is that in this process of applying for the Children's Internet or adhering to the Children's Internet Protection Act, there needs to be a public meeting where a discussion of the Internet Safety Plan occurs, and that the goal of that is to ensure that the plan reflects the community values as well as the district or school board's values. And within that meeting, there should be a discussion of the protection of minors from harmful content and how to ensure that the internet access to the internet is not going to be used unethically, and finally that the communications between minors and others is safe. Okay, and the third requirement is related to that 21st Century Act, in that they want to include a level of education for minors so that they become, in order to combat cyberbullying, and then also for students to become familiar and confident and positive, communicators online. To ensure that the school has a safe learning environment, digitally and offline. The final category requirement is that students need to be monitored. And there's a difference between monitoring and tracking. CIPA does not require that users be tracked in that their identity be revealed. The monitoring can be done by teachers and administration, or there can be software. Obviously, if you're requiring teachers and administrators to do it, that's more manpower. And so some schools opt for the software route. And that has some advantages in that you could generate a lot of interesting data there about what applications are being used and which are, the most popular, or which ones are generating the most educational value. Another option is that schools can create an acceptable use policy, and you can outline what is an appropriate behavior online and what is appropriate material to use, to look at, and which sites, how to use the internet. And then also what sort of repercussions will occur if students are found to have, broken these rules. Students understand the agreements and they sign it. And then if something happens, then there are steps that are clearly understood. So the most important result of schools adhering to Children's Internet Protection Act, obviously, is that it's a safer learning environment, and the students will be more knowledgeable about how to behave online, and how to protect themselves online, and what kind of privacy violations they should be aware of, and what kind of information should not be shared online. And then also they will become more responsible, and, they will ideally be able to use these same lessons when they're using their devices outside of the school and in their future lives. Another important result is that schools will then be allowed to receive these discounts for, their E-rates for telecommunications and information services. That really is essential for schools because that's related to the bandwidth, and so that they're going to have a functioning and safe network that they can rely on. So in my context, as I'm teaching in higher ed in Korea, obviously we follow the same laws, but there has been the same process, really responding to some of the negative things that could come out of online communities and communication. So the biggest concern, I think, is cyberbullying that has come up recently. And there have been some high-profile suicides of some celebrities and things like that were attributed to cyberbullying. So it has become an issue. And as Korea is one of the most wired nations, it's got some stunning statistics from one of the articles that I found. Almost 30% have adolescents have been reported being victimized through social media and chat rooms. So, and among the school victimizations, 10% was related to cyberbullying. So it's a serious problem. And in response to that, similar legislation has been passed in Korea. There was an act called the Prevention of and Countermeasures Against Violence in Schools. And, that was face-to-face bullying and other forms of intimidation and violence in schools. And then in 2012, it also, an amendment to that included cyberbullying. And a similar response is required of teachers in the United States, that if they see this kind of behavior, they need to report it to the principal or the police. All right. Thank you very much. These are some of my references that I drew from for this presentation. And thank you.